Hey everybody, it's GauntletX and welcome back to some more Magic Arena. Today we have another Arena Cube draft of the new June 2021 cube. And let's just hop into this thing. So we've got a Sublime Epiphany here, which is always very exciting to me. I think this card is just absurdly powerful in the cube. It is always at least like a 2-for-1 because you get to counter a spell and draw a card even if you don't have any permanents out to copy, or if your opponent doesn't have any permanents out to bounce. But this is the kind of card that gets stronger the more powerful the cards around it are. Like when you have a really good creature on the board, copying that creature is a huge effect. When your opponent's casting a really big spell, countering that spell is a huge effect. This is the kind of card that just is historically incredibly powerful in a format like Cube, so I'm pretty interested in just starting out with a Sublime Epiphany here, maybe going for the polar opposite kind of strategy than we did in our first Cube draft, as first time we went mono red, very aggro. This time we might just pick one, pack one, a very strong counter spell, and see where we go from there. As always, several great options in this pack. You can really go any way you're feeling. Atarka's Command is a really cool card for aggressive decks that I would definitely like to try out because it just got added to the cube this time around. Hasn't been there forever, so that's definitely an option there. And several other cards in that pack. So we do have Escape to the Wilds here, which is a pretty powerful draw spell, much more powerful than red and green usually get. As you can see, it is banned in several formats, which is always a good sign for how powerful it is. So this is a really strong card in the cube. Draw spells as well, the kind of card that, like, the stronger things you're drawing, the more powerful they are. And of course, in cube, we're going to have plenty of strong things. So Escape to the Wilds is an option, but then we'd be blue, green, and red right off the bat, although we can kind of just pivot into whichever is more powerful. In Cube, you're definitely incredibly open to being able to stay really open with your first several picks, because everything's so powerful that even if you don't decide for sure what your colors are until the second pack, you're still going to end up in a deck with 23 plus really good cards in whatever colors you do end up in. So Cube does leave you really open to being able to just take the strongest card for a few packs and for a few picks and seeing where you end up there. So kind of like the Escape to the Wilds here. If we want to just roll with our Sublime Epiphany, we can take Jace and just go for a controlling mill sort of strategy here. But Escape to the Wilds is a super powerful, super fun card. So I'll scoop that up here, see if that leads into anything. We could take the Cultivate to go with Escape to the Wilds. Green-based, land-based decks are really powerful in the cube. At least they have been every time around. Haven't tried them yet in this one, but I assume they still are. And Cultivate and Escape to the Wilds are both great cards for that kind of deck. You also get to play several colors when you have a lot of the green mana fixing like Cultivate, so we could even be in a deck that is blue, green, and red and get to cast our Sublime Epiphany. Yeah, I like Cultivate quite a bit. If we want to go the more controlling route, Sphinx's Revelation is a massive late-game spell to play in these more controlling decks, especially when you have a lot of stuff to do at instant speed. If you have a lot of counter spells in your deck and flash creatures, you can much more easily cast something like Sphinx's Revelation. That way you're holding mana up during their turn to interact with whatever they're playing by countering it or bouncing it or something like that. And if they just happen to not play anything, that's when you're like, all right, well, I'll just dump all this mana into a Sphinx's Revelation and have a great time there. So Sphinx's Revelation, definitely a really strong card. Huge argument for taking that here and just trying to hop in on that blue-white control train. But I'm more of a lands kind of player than a control player here. So we'll see if we can end up in that deck, because that deck is really, really fun. Although the more I draft the Arena Cube, the more I am going to try to draft strategies I haven't done yet. But luckily, this is my second Cube draft, so I've only drafted Mono Red. That's kind of the only strategy that's quote-unquote like off limits to me right now. So, I don't know how I feel about this pack. Plane-wide Celebration always just feels like way too much mana for what it does, but it does do a lot of things. It's like a big value play. Return a bunch of stuff back from your grave, or proliferate a bunch, or get a bunch of 2/2s. I don't know, I've never been a big fan of the Plane-wide Celebration. It always feels like it underperforms. Brontonon's pretty solid in the green decks, just a 3-mana 3/4, decent power and toughness for the cost, plus the ability to destroy artifacts or enchantments is nice to have in the main deck. If we want to take like a controlling card to go with Sublime Epiphany, Commit's okay. Or one of these value cards for blue-black or blue-white. Both of these essentially draw a couple cards. I'll just take the Thrashing Brontonon, stick to maybe the red-green stuff we've got going on, and it's looking pretty well here. I think I'm taking Rada out of this pack for the lands strategies. I 3 mana for a 3/3, you can play lands from the top of your library. Radha's not one of the cards that lets you play multiple lands per turn, so she doesn't ramp you up, but she still gives you good value getting those lands off the top of your deck. Potentially drawing you extra cards each turn in that roundabout way. Dryad Greenseeker's somewhat similar, drawing lands off the top of your library by tapping it over and over. It is a little easier to cast, but Radha also works as a late game ender with that 6 mana ability. Just attack with a gigantic first striker. So I do like Radha a lot. There's also Spring to Mind here. This is good mana fixing as well as allowing you to draw extra cards, but I think I'm just going to slam down a Radha here. Definitely looking like the green-red stuff is open here. Now we can take a Crag Crown and Timber Crown pathway. Sarkhan's Unsealing, another one of those cards that always looks kind of fun, but has always underperformed for me. I think it's pretty hard to get a ton of cards that'll trigger this, and you do want a ton of them for this to be good, because if you spend your turn 4, or really any turn just spending 4 mana for a card that doesn't do anything immediately, you want it to have a massive impact when it does. So ideally you have some creatures with power 7 greater and a lot with power 4, 5, or 6, and that just doesn't tend to happen a massive amount of the time, even in green-red, at least for me. So not super into the Sarkhan's Unsealing, so I'm just going to take the red-green dual land here. And Deemworthy, this is a fine removal spell, but it's also one that seems just a bit expensive, a little bit overcosted for what it does. Now we have Elvish Reclaimer, definitely very interesting for the lands decks, because you can grab whatever land you want from your deck, put it into play tapped. So this certainly is an option here. Lets us get specific lands if we have like a Field of the Dead in our deck. There's Rampaging Ferocidon. This is a fine card, 3 mana for a 3/3 menace, shuts off any life gain and deals damage to people when they play creatures. Definitely really good in very aggressive decks. I think we're a little rampy here, probably not incredibly aggressive, but I guess we could definitely pivot in that direction. I think for now I'll just take an Elvish Reclaimer. Overgrown Tomb is definitely also an option here. Try to go Jund. Now we've got some more options again. We have Resilient Kenra, a good creature on curve, 2 mana for a 2/2 that gives a creature +2/+2 when it comes in, and it eternalizes later, so a little bit of versatility there. And a Chainweb Arachneer. This card's not very good on the front half of the card, but escaping this from the grave is great. A 5 mana 4/5 reach that kills a flyer when it comes in. I think the Kenra is just going to be better at face value here, so I'm going to scoop that up. Now we're starting to get some good aggressive red-green cards, and we do wheel the Atarka's Command. Really good sign for green-red. Really good sign for Gruul here. Yeah, just a solid aggressive card. You can plop land into play. You can deal 3 to your opponent. You can stop their life gain. You can give your whole field +1/+1 reach till end of turn if you need to block a flyer. But mainly this does a few damage to your opponent and plops down a land quickly. Definitely a lot of pretty weak effects on this card because of the fact that it's one of the cheapest commands, only costing 2 mana, but the fact that it gives you so many options and gives you 2 of the options every time makes this card still pretty solid, I think. Still haven't played with it yet in the cube, but I think it'll be solid here. So we've got some just aggressive red creatures, or we have the Vastwood Surge, and I think I'd rather take the Vastwood Surge. Although with the Atarka's Command now and Resilient Kenner, we are looking pretty aggressive, so maybe Goblin Ruin Blaster is a choice here. Blowing up land is definitely always going to be a good time and a terrible time for our opponent. Don't think we'll be playing a Pelakka Predation or Golden Egg. I guess we could end up playing like a Pelakka Caverns if we pick up a Field of the Dead, because that is a card that wants you to have a bunch of lands with different names. I think it's pretty unlikely though, so we might try a Mizzix's Mastery. You do want a lot of instants and sorceries in your deck for that though, so it's not incredibly likely, but it's possible we could run a Mizzix's Mastery. We'll see how things progress. And now what do we have? A lot of red cards in this pack. We do have the Field of the Dead, so we could scoop that up and just go for it there. Yeah, these red cards are all pretty replaceable, so if just like one of these wheels to us, we get a pretty similar effect. All of these are just like a few points of damage to a creature. Thundering Rebuke, Scorching Dragonfire, Fight with Fire, all 3 of those. Crush the Weak, also pretty good in a controlling deck. So if we're just playing big creatures and we want something that can wipe the board against the really aggressive decks, that is a nice option. I think I'm just going to slam down a Field of the Dead. This is the kind of card that's very popular in the cube every time around, so it's just not going to wheel to us no matter what. And we can take that and now start prioritizing non-basics pretty highly, because just having a land that turns into a win condition in the late game is really good. And we already have Elvish Reclaimer, which can let us sacrifice a land to grab a land from our deck, any land, so we can grab Field of the Dead with that. And now we can even take an Ovenwald Hydra, which lets us search our library for any land, put it into play, and shuffle. So another card that specifically grabs Field of the Dead, gets it onto the board. So I'm going to take Ovenwald Hydra here for the great combo with Field of the Dead, although this Chandra is the best Chandra ever printed. Very, very strong card here in mid-range sort of strategies, so it would go great in this deck. 4 mana for a 4 loyalty Planeswalker, you're at least killing something with this, with that -3 to deal 4 to something. You can draw a card off of her every turn with the +1, you can get a little bit of mana when you need it, and of course the ultimate is very powerful if you make it to 7 loyalty, so a very strong Chandra there, but I think Ovenwald Hydra synergizes so well with Field of the Dead that we're going to be on that train here. And now I am definitely wanting to take non-basic lands quite highly, and I might take some of these over the Voracious Hydra, although I guess we have been seeing a lot of non-basic lands very late in the last pack, so we should be able to get those later in the packs to work with the Field of the Dead, although we will want a lot of them. I think I'm going to start with the Voracious Hydra here. In the last pack, when we got down to 4 cards in the pack, it was almost like every single pack passed to us was just kind of a stack of non-basic lands. So if that progresses the same way in this pack, we'll be having a fantastic time with our Field of the Dead. Of course, that is a bit of a read on how the draft's been going this far. So if somebody started taking a bunch of non-basics, that could go really poorly for us here, and then our Field of the Dead doesn't really do anything. But this is the kind of deck, even if we have to cut the Field of the Dead, I think we've got plenty of powerful, just green-red ramp game plan stuff going on. Some good value draws. We only have the 1 card really, or the 2 cards to ramp into right now, the Ovenwald Hydra and Voracious Hydra, but push comes to shove, worst case scenario, and we don't wheel a bunch of non-basics this time around, we can definitely just cut the field and still have a powerful deck, so I'm going to take Oracle Moldiah here, just an incredible draw engine as well as a ramp engine. You get to play lands from the top of your library, and you get to play 2 lands per turn, so if you have 2 lands on top of your library, you've essentially just drawn 2 right there. Really, really solid card for several reasons, so that's pretty great stuff here. This pack in general is pretty good for us, though, because both of these flip lands are great to work with Field of the Dead, because they're a decent spell when you need it, and a land when you need the land, especially with Field of the Dead, that makes them even better because they're lands with different names than our basics, so they help us trigger that 7 lands we need for field. And here I am just going to do the diligent thing and just take a non-basic land here. I think I like Rootbound Crag over the Temple of Abandon. Just getting an untapped land, I think I like a little better than the tapped Scry 1 land. I don't think that Garruk's Uprising is looking particularly good in this deck. We don't have a lot of creatures just in general, although some that we have are pretty big. Voracious Hydra, Ovenwald Hydra. Most of them are smaller than that, a bunch of 3-power, 2-power stuff in the early game, so we're not drawing a lot of cards off the Garruk's Uprising, which is the strongest part of it. And Rowan, that Planeswalker up there, really cares about having a lot of instants and sorceries, and I don't think we're really getting a ton of value off of that either. So here we can take the Darkboar and Slitherboar pathway, and this essentially just replaces a forest as a land with a different name for Field of the Dead, or we can take Fauna Shaman. Probably supposed to take Slitherboar pathway here, but I really like Fauna Shaman. It's pretty much my favorite card in the cube, not because it's the strongest card in the cube, just the card I have the most fun with. It's really fun to be able to just dig out whatever creature you want all the time. So if our opponent has an artifact or enchantment, discarding something to grab Thrashing Brontodon, or if we make it to 6 mana and we want to grab our Field of the Dead, discarding a card to grab Ovenwald Hydra, which comes into play and grabs Field of the Dead. There's just so many fun things you can do with Fauna Shaman that it is almost impossible for me to ever pass up on it if I'm in green in the cube. And with the Fauna Shaman, we definitely want some more creatures now, and particularly some creatures that have good, unique effects when they come into play. So I think Sawtusk Demolisher seems pretty solid here. It's really good with Fauna Shaman, because we can discard any creature, search this up, and then we can mutate this onto Fauna Shaman, because Fauna Shaman is an elf, which allows us to destroy any non-creature permanent, the controller does get a 3/3 beast, but we can still, you know, destroy a problematic planeswalker or something like that with that card, which is nice. I don't know how powerful Regrowth is in the cube. They just added it this time around in the Mystical Archives, but it's kind of an interesting card. Waking the Trolls is good if you can ramp out lands a lot faster than your opponent, and I think we're kind of going to be doing that. We've got Cultivate that ramps out lands, Atarka's Command puts a land into play, Spring to Mind, the Oracle of Moldiah, lots of cards that can put us in a position where we have many more lands than our opponent, which on the third part of the Waking the Trolls saga can just spit out an absolute army of 4/4s. So we can try out the Waking the Trolls here, gives us another big late game play. So Blossoming Defense is a little interesting, but I think I need the early game removal. We don't have like any removal in this deck, so right now we have a very low amount of interaction against just very fast decks. I guess Crush the Weak's also an option there, but we have a lot of like 2/2 creatures, Resilient Kenra, Fauna Shaman. I guess not a lot, but a few of them. Oracle of Moldiah as well. I think I'd rather just take the targeted removal there. And I'll just take a non-basic land here, the Blast Zone. Helm of the Host is always a little too slow for my tastes. And we have so many just land ramp cards. I don't think we want the artifact ramp from Gilded Lotus. We're definitely not a Claim the Firstborn deck. We don't have anything to sacrifice whatever we steal. And we are getting non-basics nice and late here, which is what we wanted. I think I'll just take a Castle Embereth here, but I guess Glasspool Mimic is also an option. We could end up splashing in a bit of blue to be able to cast Mind, and this is just like a blue land, Glasspool Shore there. But I think I'll just take the castle, and definitely going to take Gazul's Cliffs here, another land with a different name. Far more often than not, we'll be playing this as just a tapped land for Field of the Dead. So we'll have to consider that when we consider our land count. I don't think I'll be playing Quandrix Command, but again, this is the kind of deck we could end up with a blue splash. I mean, we've got Cultivate and Vastwood Surge at least that can grab basics out of our deck, so we can have just a random island in here to help with stuff like that. Alright, so what are we doing out of this pack? Definitely some options. Sheltered Thicket, obviously being the on-color dual land, the red-green dual land, so it helps with Field of the Dead as well as getting our mana all set up. We're pretty low on removal, so Demon Bolt would be nice, followed by a Braid being a little bit weaker. It does give us artifact removal in the main deck, but it does a little bit less damage, and we already have Thrashing Brontodon as a little bit of artifact removal, and Sawtusk Demolisher as well. Magma Quake's an option if we're playing against a really fast deck, trying to just wipe the board against them to survive in the late game. Essica's Chariot's just a really strong card, giving us some 2/2s and then making more 2/2s when we're attacking with it. Lots of really strong stuff to choose from. I think I'm actually just going to play it really safe and just take the Demon Bolt there. Again, I don't love the stuff that's wiping the whole board because we are a deck that already has some pretty important creatures that are pretty small that will die to stuff like Magma Quake, such as the Oracle of Moldiah, the Fauna Shaman type cards. So I don't love the stuff that just damages everything. So I kind of like just Demon Bolt as more targeted removal, because now we still only have like 2 removal spells, so I'm still a little scared about the early game, but that will definitely help us out a little bit there. So there's Earthshaker Kenner, but I don't think we're that aggressive. This card's really good if you are. We have Incubation Druid to ramp us up, or Landwar Visionary to ramp us up, or again, one of these non-basic lands for Field of the Dead here. Yeah, we're kind of low on non-basics. We've got 3, 4, 5, 6 right now. Could see just taking the Breeding Pool for that. Yeah, hopefully we have enough ramp off of just the land grabbers and Beanstalk Giant here as well. But now we've got Golos Tireless Pilgrim. We can be the Golos Field of the Dead deck. Even if we don't have the 5 colors to use Golos' alternate ability, we do get to cast Golos on 5, use Golos to search for our Field of the Dead and put it into play nice and early. So Golos is going to be fantastic in this deck, and I don't think we can really pass it up here, even though there are other cards that would be great here, particularly Beanstalk Giant being another ramp spell that grabs us any basic, which is good. Inscription of Abundance would give us more removal, and Drakuzeth would give us another big card to ramp into. So there's certainly other options, but Golos is just bread and butter Field of the Dead combos right there. Now, what are we doing? Well, now that we have Golos and field. I'm really liking the idea of just slamming down every non-basic we see, because this is pack 3. This is our last opportunity to scoop up a bunch more non-basics to trigger Field of the Dead more often, and to maybe even potentially be able to use Golos' secondary ability a couple times. We've already got some big stuff to ramp into: Voracious Hydra, Ovenwald Hydra, Waking the Trolls. We've already got a good amount of random little removal, Demon Bolt, Thundering Rebuke, little early creatures. I think we're kind of set on a lot of stuff. The one thing we're really missing is just a giant stack of non-basics, and that's probably how we're going to end this draft here, just scooping up non-basics. Although Scavenging Ooze is so good against aggressive decks and graveyard decks, because this card gains life, gets pretty big pretty quickly. Scavenging Ooze is a really, really strong card, as is Hornet Queen. This card can stabilize you off of a very aggressive start from your opponent. Even if they're just beating you up and they have like 4 or 5 really good attackers, you get that Hornet Queen out there and you're just completely stabilized. We're getting put in some really difficult decisions here. We do have the Field of the Dead, the Golos. We do want those duels pretty highly, but like Hornet Queen, a great stabilizer, and Scavenging Ooze, a great card to shut off interaction. I'm just going to keep slamming non-basics here. I think they are just that good in the deck that we've drafted here. And again, we have other things, maybe not as powerful as Hornet Queen to ramp into, but still, we have other powerful things to ramp into. Essica's interesting. We could cast the Prismatic Bridge, potentially. But again, I think we're just going to scoop up a million non-basics at this point, get a bunch of lands with different names so we can spit out zombies with our Field of the Dead. How many non-lands do we have here? We've got 9 lands, which means we have 21 non-lands. I do need a couple more non-land cards, which luckily here we don't see a good non-basic. We do see Spikefield Hazard. We could play this as Spikefield Cave. I think I'd rather just pick up like a Primal Command here, since the Spikefield Cave isn't a dual land or doesn't do anything particularly good on its land half. And we do need like 1 or 2 more non-land cards. Of course, in this pack there are no lands, so we have to take a non-land card. Now this pack kind of sucks for us, though. I mean, there's Cold Steel Heart, which can mana fix us off of just a little artifact there, but the stuff that's just in green or red is just Blex or Wilderness Reclamation, neither of which we can make use of. We just don't have any instants for Reclamation, don't have any pests or anything. I guess I'll just take Cold Steel Heart. I mean, we could take a Johnny because we have some random white sources, but we don't have like a lot of creatures to get great use out of a Johnny's ability to put a counter on everything, so I don't love a Johnny there. Now we have Thragtusk, a Braid, and the Dragon Skull Summit. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Do we have any black cards? No, unfortunately not. I'm just going to take a Thragtusk here. If we had like 1 black card, I'd just slam a Dragon Skull Summit. But now we have like 10 non-basics, as well as we'll have 1 of every basic in this deck for Field of the Dead. So if we get 1 of every basic out, we only need to draw 2 different non-lands, or non-basic lands, sorry, to trigger that. And we're not going to play any of these cards, so I don't think it really matters. Cosmos Elixir, I think, is the most likely we'd end up playing, because if we can stabilize, we just sit behind this thing and draw cards, but not particularly likely. I like both of these red cards, Pillar of the Flame and Dracuzeth here. Just another big card to ramp into, or another early removal. Hengate Pathway, it is a dual, but it doesn't share a single color with one of our main colors, which is pretty important. We'll just slam a Dracuzeth there, get another big old card to plop down. And I am assuming for the rest of this draft it's going to be a bunch of stuff we're just not going to play. Just how drafts usually end. Alright. Shouldn't be the hardest deck to build at the end here, because we don't get to cut too many cards, because we had to draft so many non-basics. Yeah, we get to cut like 1 card here, and I think that's going to be Mizzix's Mastery. Don't think we have enough instants and sorceries to do anything insane with this card. Again, that was just like a late pick in pack 1. It was just in our colors. I'm going to turn off my Parallax card styles because they just distract me a little. I think I do want to cut another land here, or not another land, another non-land. Because I think with the amount of cards that we have to pull lands out of our decks, and the amount of cards we have that care about getting a bunch of lands out, running a deck with 18 lands is definitely ideal here. We have Field of the Dead, we have Waking the Trolls wants us to have a ton of lands. Rada wants to have a ton of lands for that 6-mana ability. Ovenwald Hydra is bigger for all the lands we have. Definitely at least an 18 land deck, maybe even a 19. I could see cutting the Cold Steel Heart here because it's just an artifact that ramps us up. We'd much prefer all of our ramp that pulls lands out of our deck, our Spring, our Cultivate, Vastwood Surge, Rada, Oracle of Moldiah, all that kind of stuff is definitely the ramp we're trying to use here. Even Escape to the Wilds to a certain degree because it does allow us to play additional lands there. Yeah, I think I'm going to cut the Cold Steel Heart. And I could definitely see cutting one more card. Is there anything that just really doesn't work with what we're doing? Atarka's Command isn't fantastic, because we're not aggressive enough to get a ton of use out of the damage that this is doing and the +1/+1 ability, but it's still putting a land out, and we get to use whichever other ability we want. It's also kind of the new hotness, like it just came out in the Historic Anthology, so it's the first time it's been in the cube. I do want to play it here, but this isn't really the greatest deck for that. Definitely going to keep the Kazul's Fury, Kazul's Cliffs, because it is a flip card, but we could also consider that to be a land more often than a spell, and then right now we'd be the 19 land deck if we're just always using Kazul's Cliffs as a land there, just to get another land with a different name for Field of the Dead. Yeah, I could definitely see that. I guess we can just run with the 18 lander here, because we do have the 19th land of Kazul's Fury, Kazul's Cliffs, filling that out there. But I'll take one last look at all of our cards here, see if anything just really doesn't work. Reclaimer definitely works, grabbing Field of the Dead out. Fauna Shaman's always great. Yeah, I don't feel like there's anything in here that just incredibly does nothing. I think everything goes fine in a green-red ramp deck. Yeah, I think this is going to be the deck here. We just got to edit our basic lands a little bit, and we should be good to go. So it looks like even just off of the non-basics, if we're super lucky, we have enough different non-basic lands to use Golos's ability every now and then, but I think I do still want a couple basics of like each kind. I probably just want the one island, one plains, one swamp here, because that makes it so all of our cards that grab basic lands out of our deck can grab us a land with a different name for Field of the Dead, and can grab us a color that we don't have yet for triggering Golos's effect. Okay, and then I probably just want a forest here, but I'll have to take another look at all the non-basics and count up our amount of each color that we have in there. That's all we got left to building this deck. Okay, so are there no mountains in here? I guess not, because all our non-basics are red. Well, we're going to need one mountain, that's for sure. So let's turn all our forests into Bolas forests. We'll do that right now. Okay. Uh-oh, our island isn't a Bolas island. Gotta make the mana base beautiful. Gotta make it perfect here as we edit the deck. Okay, let's throw one mountain in here so that we can grab a red source off of our basic land searchers. That is incredibly important, even if we have a ton of red non-basics. All right, now let's take a look at how our non-basics distribute the colors of mana that we have, and go from there. We might want to cut a blast zone. I think we're multicolored enough, and we have enough different non-basics and basics to trigger the Field of the Dead. We probably can cut a blast zone. Again, the reason for cutting this is just the fact that it taps for colorless. That's pretty rough for us, even if it has a good effect, plus adds a different non-basic for field. Yeah, I'll cut the blast zone here. Now let's take a look at our basic colors. So we have one green. We only really need to check how many green and red sources we have here, because we don't actually have any white, blue, or black cards, except for Mind is technically blue. But the only reason we need other colors of mana is Golos. So don't really care about what the secondary colors are on these. We just care how much are red and how much are green. Okay. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 red sources right now, 6 green sources, and 3 that are both. So in the fight between red and green, which is the only thing that we're caring about right now, actually we have Kazul's Cliff. In the fight between red and green, red is exactly tied with green, and I think we have more green than red right now in the deck. Oh yeah, 17 green cards and 8 red cards, and right now we have the exact same number of green and red sources. Unfortunately, the auto-suggester agreed that we should probably cut a red source and throw another green source in, but unfortunately for us, we can't do that without cutting another non-basic land with a different name, or cutting our one basic mountain, so that we can't even search for red off of Cultivate and Vastwood Surge and that kind of stuff. So I don't think we can cut a red source here. And I guess we could just cut the worst red non-basic. We probably still have plenty to go with Field of the Dead. Yeah, cut the Kazul's Cliffs here and then throw in another forest. But I'm definitely not cutting any more red sources after that. Alright, and here's the deck. Green-red ramp this time around. We have the Field of the Dead, we have the Golos, we have some pretty big spells. Escape to the Wilds, drawing a ton of cards. Oracle drawing us through our deck. Should be a really fun, really powerful deck to play here. We'll see how it does this time around. All right, round one. Got a pretty great hand here. We have 3 mana at our disposal. We have a red and 2 greens, so we get that Bronted on turn 3 if we want it, but we're probably just playing Rada. Even have a Tarka's Command to potentially ramp us a little. Just gonna dump out the red pathway here. We don't have anything in our deck that requires triple green, and we have a card that needs triple red in our hand. So we definitely need to start getting those red sources out for the Drakozeth eventually. Might ramp up with a Tarka's Command here. It's not going to ramp us into a 4-drop on turn 3, but we're not doing much else with this card. It just stops people from gaining life or gives our creatures +1/+1 till end of turn. I guess, actually, if they're going to play a Dorat here, if I just hold this to give reach to our cards, we might be able to kill a Dorat out of nowhere by blocking it with something that shouldn't be able to. So like here's our last chance if we want to just dump a land out here. Gets us to Drakozeth quicker if we draw a land every turn. But otherwise we're kind of just playing these cards. It's kind of a hard argument because Rada does let us play extra lands by seeing the top card of our library, so that makes it more likely we can curve into the Drakozeth pretty quickly if we just dump a Tarka's Command out here. Yeah, I'm just going to dump it out. But there's definitely an argument for holding it to give our field reach. We'll go with the green source here. If we draw like a ton of mountains, we could hold the Needle Verge pathway to make it a white source for Golos eventually. But that looks like it's not the case. Now we can just play Vastwood Surge, and then we're 1 mana away from Drakozeth. That's kind of nice. 2 basic land cards. They can be different names or the same names. So we can play this as a white and then grab 2 red. Or the other way around, play this as a red and then grab a white and a red. Yeah, we're 1 mana away from Drakozeth. We don't know that we're going to have the mana for Drakozeth next turn, but even if we don't hit it, we just play 2 3-mana cards next turn. So I think just dropping Vastwood Surge is fine here. We only need 1 red source, so we'll grab 1 red source and then 1 of a random color. Let's see, we have a green-blue source. Just trying to see out of our non-basics. We have a green-blue, we've got a red-white, a black-red. We kind of have like 1 of everything except... Well, no, we've got like 1 of everything in the others, so it doesn't really matter what our secondary color is. I guess we'll take blue because we do have Spring to Mind and Golos, so that's slightly more things that need blue mana than anything else. Opponent is getting that card drawn with Compulsive Research, drawing a ton there. Did not hit the Dracuzeth mana, but we can play Rada now, see what's on top. If it's a land on top, we get to play that land. We have Dracuzeth mana next turn. If it's not a land on top, we can just Cultivate to know that we're getting there. And it's Field of the Dead into Cultivate. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. If I Cultivate, I get a zombie here. And I get a white and a black, so I get a zombie again next turn. I think that's better than the Brontodon. Bam. The Field of the Dead has begun. It's a pretty great card to have on top with the Rada. And we've really ramped out this game. Royal Eruption to kill Rada, makes Dorat bigger. We are getting hit by this Dorat for a lot, but a 7/7 flyer is big enough to block it if they don't have removal for it. They do have a black source now, though, so I'm a little worried about a Doomblade kind of card. Just destroy target creature. Although we're the kind of deck that's just playing dudes and attacking, don't really have any counterplay to that. Unless I want to just run out Brontodon Thragtusk instead. Get that zombie token. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, I guess I could play Thragtusk and Brontodon instead. We gain 5 life when we do that, and we just start slamming on the ground. Dracuzeth makes Dorat stop attacking us and can kill it when it attacks, which is really good. But it's definitely the worst play if they do have a removal spell in their hand, and they are partially black over there. Could be like Grixis control here. Playing Thragtusk and Brontodon, we go to 18 life. We have 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 power on the board. We can still try to race there. Yeah, I'm going to go Thragtusk, Brontodon. Oh, I can't. I don't have 3 green. And the auto tapper was extra rude about it. Has to rub it in my face by using 2 green on the Thragtusk in the first place. I think there's still an argument for running out the Thragtusk instead of the Dracuzeth because it's a lot better against removal, and they're a Dorat deck, so they're going to have tons of instants and sorceries, likely tons of removal. But now that I know I could only play Thragtusk or only Dracuzeth, I think I would go for just Dracuzeth here if I had realized I only had 2 green. Yeah, I think I should have run out the Dracuzeth. But Thragtusk definitely is not the worst play ever here. We gain life equal to the amount of damage they're going to deal to us this turn, so we essentially sort of time walk them a little bit in terms of the race. Things go in our favor a little bit. But playing the Dracuzeth, if they don't have the removal for the Dracuzeth, Dracuzeth also just stops them from hitting us with Dorat. Alright, so they do go in for that Dorat swing, put us right back down to the 13 we were at before. And that's all. Unfortunately, the Demon Bolt now is too late. Does 4 damage. Dorat is now a 5/5. Now they could have a removal spell or a counter spell to stop Dracuzeth, so it's even more likely. We might be able to get them to do something in combat here. We do get them to abrade our Thragtusk, which is nice. This Thragtusk does give us a beast here. And now they have 2 mana up instead of 4, so it's less likely they have a counterspell, but they still definitely could. And they still definitely have the mana for several cheap removal spells. There are a lot that are just like 2 mana. There's Doomblade, there's Heartless Act, all that kind of stuff. Could be Memory Lapse here. They had the 2 mana up last turn as well. So we're running this up into just as much mana as we did last time. I suppose they just drew the Memory Lapse. They did Brainstorm last turn, which was pretty big for them. Set up for the best hand out of the top 3 there. So I'm guessing they didn't have Memory Lapse last turn, because if they did, they probably would have Probably would have memory lapsed Thragtusk. Well, that is unfortunate. I think if we had just run out Drakuzeth, we might be set up for a lethal attack on this next turn. Definitely in a better position if we ran out Drakuzeth earlier instead of the Thragtusk. We wouldn't have killed Dorat, though. They had so many instant sorceries in hand. By the time we played Thragtusk, Dorat was already a 4/4. So if we tried to kill it, they would just respond with their instant speed Brainstorm that they had played that turn. So Dorat would still be alive, but we could attack them back if they attack us with it. I guess the other problem I'm not thinking about is the amount of just cheap burn they had like a Braid. If we played Drakuzeth, they just attack with Dorat, and then they could use Dorat plus a Braid to kill Drakuzeth. They could definitely deal with our Drakuzeth, but Drakuzeth might have dealt with their Dorat if we played it earlier. So not a game we definitely would have won if we played Drakuzeth out. They had so much burn, plus a 4/4 Dorat at the time, they can easily kill the Drakuzeth. But it would require them getting rid of their only card there on the board. Still plenty in hand. Now we're just mega dead. Dorat is big enough we have to chump block against it. And they have the Tybalt as well to just exile Drakuzeth and then cast it on their side. So mega over. Well, not a fantastic way to start there. A little bit of a misplay with the Drakuzeth, but a game I think we certainly would have lost either way. Still do like that we played the Atarka's command, just trying to ramp up as quickly as possible. It worked very well with how we drew into the explosive vegetation type card, the 4-mana grab 2 lands card. Just had a ton of mana very quickly. Alright, this is basically the same hand. The Atarka's command and the Rada there. I'll keep it. Definitely solid stuff here. If we draw into a land, we get to... Nice, okay. I was going to say, if we draw into a land, we do get to Atarka's command turn 2, which lets us Vastwood Surge turn 4. We might be able to just hard cast a Sawtusk Demolisher pretty soon. Just a big old 6/6 trample. Although that's not the greatest. Most of the value on this card is from its mutate effect being pretty good. Alright. Let's just get that land out. Definitely don't love the Atarka's command in this deck. It does ramp us up like a little bit, but the just dealing some random damage to our opponent doesn't tend to do anything that crazy. So I'm grabbing the mountain so we have triple red for Drakuzeth, but then grabbing a blue because of Field of the Dead, Golos. Just grabbing a land with a different name than Forest or Mountain. We do have 3 green sources now, so far. Compulsive Research, turn 3 for our opponent. Looks like they're on Soul Tie, green, blue, and black. We do get to cast this Waking the Trolls next turn, destroy their Triome, and potentially just make a gigantic army of trolls because we've ramped so many lands out so quickly. Especially if we draw into another land, that will be beautiful. Oh yeah, this is gonna be just absurd. Yeah, if they don't have a way to kill an enchantment, I think Waking the Trolls just single-handedly wins us the game here. And even if it doesn't, just destroying a land when they're down at 3 lands there against our, like, 7, it's pretty fantastic. So they do have Unstable Obelisk, but it does need 7 mana to kill something there. So not particularly likely to do anything crazy. Do I want to play a 6/6 here, or do I want to just play Rada? I guess I should have just not played a land and played Rada, because I kind of like holding Sawtusk Demolisher just as a big safety valve. Any non-creature permanent they play, any really threatening Planeswalker they manage to get out, we can just stop. Should have played the Rada before I played my land, though, so I could play this Pathway off the top to draw a card there. If that was the plan. I guess I could have been really rude and played Sawtusk Demolisher to destroy their island. That actually probably was the play. I completely forgot this thing could even destroy lands, so I could have destroyed their island. That gives me more trolls from Waking the Trolls and puts them off blue mana for that turn. So that would have been absolutely hilarious. Well, they're tapped out, so Rada attacks for like 1,000,000. Let's see how much it is here. So we could have put them to 1 if we mutated Demolisher onto Rada. But that's still... I mean, they're at 4 against 1,000,000 4/4s. Still going to hold on to Demolisher. I think the only way we lose now is if they have something that kills all the creatures. If they have a Wrath effect. And then if they Wrath us, we can at least drop a 6/6 out now. Alright, just kill 2 of them. And there's the concession. Yeah, that was just a ridiculous game for Waking the Trolls. We ramped out a ton of lands really quickly to get the 5 4/4s, and it was also a game where just destroying their land was a really big effect. I wish I saw the line with Sawtusk Demolisher, though, to blow up their other land. That would have been so beyond rude, it's insane. But I'll definitely remember that for next time here. And another fantastic hand. This one's actually a little slow. I mean, we're not doing anything until turn 4, but a turn 4 Oracle of Mul-Daya is always a great time. Dragon Master Outcast will start things for our opponent. We're just going to keep playing all our tapped lands while we don't need untapped mana. Red, white, and black so far. Probably a similar deck to us, I would think. Maybe some kind of 5-color deck here. Ooh, Atarka's Command. Fortunately, moderately too late. Like, we can ramp out the mana to play Oracle, but we can already just play Oracle next turn anyway. Probably still going to do the Atarka's Command. It gets us closer to having Field of the Dead go off. Save this Pathway for last so I know exactly what color I want off of it. They almost definitely have removal for Oracle here. They're on red, black, and white, and they have 3 mana up. They didn't do anything. So I'm kind of convinced I should just play Thragtusk, because it plays really well against removal. I'm going to play this for green, because we do have Primal Command in hand, and only 1 green mana there. Play Thragtusk here. We can hold the Oracle for next turn. This just completely stops all the early aggression that they had against us. Puts us right back to 20 life here, with a nice big blocker that replaces itself when it dies. If I trade with Skyclave Shade, they can just recast it if they play a land, but that will take up all their mana for the turn. So I think I'm actually fine with the trade. I don't need to keep a 5/3 and bash in with a 5/3. I can win the long game off of Field of the Dead, especially if Oracle is more likely to stay around, which it will be if they tap some mana here to just replay a 3/1. And they don't even do that, just a Vastwood Surge here, which means they're completely tapped out. I get at least 1 turn out of Oracle of Mul-Daya, which is awesome. However, Dragon Master Outcast will start going off if I let it, so Do have to worry about that. Not anything I can do about that. Primal Command only hits non-creatures. Although I suppose I could use Primal Command to just put one of their lands back into their library. Put their one green source back in and shuffle. That's an option. If I want to stop them from getting 5/5 flyers, that's the best I have. Otherwise, I'm playing Oracle of Moldiah, hoping to have a land on top. If I do, I put one more out, I have 6 mana. If I have 2 lands on top, I can get like 1/2/2 zombie, but none of that is on par with them getting a 5/5 dragon. So I think I'm actually just going to Primal Command to get rid of one of their lands, and specifically probably the green source here. Which is really weird. Some of the cube games can just lead to some really weird plays you would never expect to do. Now the question is, do I want to search for a creature or do I want to shuffle their library so they can't just immediately replay the forest? I think I already have the good creatures for next turn. Like if I hit a land, I play Ovenwald Hydra. If I don't hit a land, I play Oracle. So I don't really need to search for a creature here. I don't need to gain 7, I'm at 20. Yeah, we'll just shuffle their graveyard into their library, and maybe that means they won't immediately draw a land. Or at the very least, they won't immediately just draw a green source. This also gets their graveyard synergistic 3/1 out of there, so they can't play that again from the grave. Alright, they had a green-white source there. Anyway, but we did stop them from getting the 1 dragon at least. Now we really want the 1 mana for Ovenwald Hydra. Well, now less so, because they have a card to just kill it, make me sacrifice a creature. Actually, if I play Ovenwald Hydra, though, I get the Ovenwald Hydra and a 2/2 zombie because of Field of the Dead. Because I play... a Pathway here. I play Ovenwald Hydra, this grabs my 7th land. So I get a 2/2 zombie. If they flashback Chainer's Edict on me, I just sacrifice the zombie token. They need 7 mana to do that. Ovenwald Hydra is a big enough reach creature to block their flying 5/5 dragons. Yeah, Ovenwald Hydra is the best play for sure. And we'll grab... Do I have a red-blue source? That would be the best here. Because I do want another red source for if we drop Drakuzeth. I guess we have a red-black source. That's fine. Red-blue would be the best because we do have Spring to Mind in our hand, so that would let us cast that eventually, but I still like getting the red for Drakuzeth, and now we're only 1 blue mana away from using Golos' ability if we draw Golos. However, we are 2 blue mana away from casting Mind on Spring to Mind, but of course we can use Spring to grab an island, so essentially 1 blue away from casting Mind, so that's not that bad. Alright, now we gotta worry about the onslaught of dragon tokens from our opponent. We do have a couple of removal spells in here, but not a lot to deal with the Dragon Master Outcast. We have a couple like 2 mana deal 4 damage to a creature spells. Those would be quite useful. They're going to Royal Eruption the zombie token, so if they can cast that Chainer's Edict before we get another zombie, then they get to kill the Ovenwald Hydra. But now we have Waking the Trolls. Waking the Trolls is pretty bad here. Blows up one of their lands, but they still have 6. They only need to play 1 more land to Chainer's Edict us. And if they Chainer's Edict us, if we haven't played a land, then Ovenwald Hydra just dies. So I think we play Oracle of Moldiah, hoping to see some lands on the top. Dump them out, and then cast Spring as well. Get a bunch of 2/2s that way. Alright, no land on top, so I cast Spring to shuffle. And get a guaranteed 2/2. And if we're lucky here, get even more lands on top, which we did. A Rootbound Crag. Haven't even played a land for a turn, so if we get a land after this, we're playing another one. No, looks like Escape to the Wilds is the next card. It is a powerful card, but it is not another land. Approach of the Second Sun. This is a very interesting deck from our opponent. Well, basically no way to interact with this. If they live 7 more turns, they win the game, and with Dragon Master Outcast just spitting out a ton of ton of dragon tokens. It's going to be really hard to kill them that fast. Waking the Trolls is way too slow, and they have a ton of lands already, so I think we cast Escape to the Wilds. Now we have the Demon Bolt to kill Dragon Master Outcast. I'm just going to pay the life on this. I want to just dig through my deck as quickly as possible here. So if I Demon Bolt, I have 4 mana up. So I can Demon Bolt and I can Sawtusk Demolisher. Sawtusk Demolisher just kills what? Like Maze Mind Tome? I don't think I'd do that. I'd probably Demon Bolt and Cultivate to get just a ton of zombies, so perhaps we get enough to race them well. We definitely Demon Bolt this Dragon Master Outcast. That's for sure. Cultivator, Demolisher. There's nothing great to demolish, so I'm just going to Cultivate. Get a Zambi. They have 10 flying damage if I attack them with the Ovenwald Hydra. So I go to 7. More worried about dying to approach the second sun. I guess we get to blow up Maze Mind Tome with Sawtusk Demolisher. Maybe we should have done that, because that does speed up the approach the second sun. I am much more worried about dying to approach than dying to these flyers, so I'm just going to go at it here. I think we definitely should have killed the Maze Mind Tome. I totally forgot this thing can scry. They don't even have to pay the mana to draw off of it to get towards their approach the second sun. Actually very close to it because of that card. However, if they do it one more time, this is gone anyway, right? No, 2 more times. Magma Quake. Sad. Kind of shuts off the whole game plan now because all the 2/2s are gone. Not getting particularly aggressive. My deck is also pretty low on lands now because I've been running so many out. And I can't play 2 a turn. Oracle's dead. Probably just does it to us there. Play a Breeding Pool, and then I can cast Mind because I have blue mana. Doing 14 damage here. Any way to find lethal here? Not off these cards. Elvish Reclaimer doesn't have reach or anything. Nothing has reach here. Sawtusk Demolisher doesn't make Hydra any bigger. No, we're just dead to flyers now. Since I tried to draw off of Mind. Nah. Not getting there that time. Close though. Bash in for like 15. So that game we definitely could have blown up Maze Mind Tome. That would allow us to play a little less aggressively against the approach the second sun. So we didn't tap on the flyer and go down to like 5 there at the end. Just give us a little bit more time to try to set up a kill, but that Magma Quake was very destructive to our plan. Another perfectly keepable hand. Turn to Thalia from our opponent. Pretty annoying. If you mutated the Sawtusk on the Ovenwald specifically has power and toughness equal to the number of lands I control. So if I put Sawtusk on top of Ovenwald, it turns into a 6/6 instead of a 14/14. Because it doesn't get +1/+1 for each land you control, it would not have done the thing, unfortunately. If it did get +1/+1 per lands, I think we could put them down to 1 there. Because it was like 14/14, they were at 21. Yeah, that would have been pretty good. Are we just against like mono-white control here or something? Mono-white aggro? I just see a white source and a couple colorless. Kind of weird. I kind of want to just rebuke Thalia because it's annoying. I should have saved this pathway as a green source. I got mixed up with my pathways. I meant to play the red-white one as a red source. Big oof. Now we gotta wait for the second green, but we've got 3 more turns to get there. I don't actually know if I want to kill Thalia right now. Doesn't seem necessary. Yet. We can mutate our Sawtusk Demolisher next turn. That might do something, depending on what they play. If they play something we want to blow up, like a Maul of the Skyclaves. Alright, we did draw the second green, which is great. But I'm going to play another red here for Field of the Dead. I don't want to play another land that shares color until I need double green that turn. I'm going to get rid of the Maul. They can have their 3/3 token. So I want to attack here, though. If I attack in, I hit for 6, they go to 12, but then they start hitting me for 5. I have Primal Command to gain 7 life here. It's probably pretty good. Yeah, it probably helps race pretty well. Although I don't have Primal Command until turn 6, and on turn 6 I kind of just want to play Ovenwald Hydra. I'm going to play it nice and safe. We have such a good late game here that if I just hold Sawtusk Demolisher to block if they can't kill it, I take no damage this turn. That means next turn I get to go for playing Field of the Dead tapped, Thundering Rebuke to kill one of their cards. And then on turn 6, I play my 6th land untapped, play Ovenwald Hydra, and maybe even get a zombie token off Field of the Dead. That's if I draw a land with a different name, because Forest, unfortunately, would be a duplicate land. Draw a Tarka's Command here. That can surprise kill flyers. They grabbed a Selfless Savior and Machias off of the Ranger of Eos. So Machias is pretty threatening, putting a +1/+1 counter onto the whole field. Selfless Savior is not that bad. I'm not particularly worried about that one. So I think I do play Field of the Dead tapped here. I suppose if I play Thundering Rebuke first, I can kill Thalia and then have the 2 mana up to cast a Tarka's Command. And then I can use a Tarka's Command to just put Field of the Dead into play anyway. And then I'm playing more lands this turn. Yeah, it's fine. I feel like I should probably be cutting this Tarka's Command because it's not giving us great value in this deck. It's just plop an extra land out. It's basically like a 2 mana version of the Arboreal Grazer, the 1 mana 0/3 that lets you play an extra land in that turn. Just didn't end up being aggressive enough to get good use out of the pump spell part of the spell or the damage to our opponent part. It's just a little too low impact. But it's also a new card, so definitely a card I wanted to try. I just don't think that this is the right deck for it. Just not quite aggressive enough. Much more of a sort of ramp strategy here. Oh dear. Alright, well, Have a million +1/+1 counters all over the board. Definitely, definitely a little worried about how much damage we'll be taking next turn. Plop down our Field of the Dead here, so if we draw another land next turn, thanks to Ulvenwald Hydra, we'll be able to get a zombie. No, just Awaking the Trolls. I feel like Waking the Trolls is way too slow for right now. We destroy a land which doesn't impact the board in any way. We can block this 4/4, which even if they put counters on with Mikaeus, we still kill that as the 5/5, but then we take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. We go to like 1 life if we cast Waking the Trolls. So we'll just play another big old blocker then. The Ulvenwald Hydra out here. This also gets us to only 1 land away from Field of the Dead going off. I'll grab a red source so we have the triple red for Atarka. I guess grabbing another green source, if I get like 11 mana, I could cast Primal Command and Waking the Trolls in 1 turn, so that's the thing. Yeah, I'll grab a green-red source, just so I can do both of those things. I can cast a double green spell and a single green spell in the same turn, and I can cast an Atarka if we draw an Atarka. Or not Atarka. I got mixed up because I have Atarka's command. I forget what it's called. Drakuzeth, that's it. The other big legendary dragon. Field of Ruin on the Field of the Dead. Sure. So now we grab a green probably, because the other colors don't really matter unless we draw Golos. If we draw Golos, then we can just grab Plains or Swamp. Guess I already have 3 green. I'm going to grab the Plains here, because now if we top deck a Golos, we grab a Swamp and we have all 5 colors. Although, I don't know how much time we have to fiddle around with that. We'll see. Well, it looks like they aren't attacking here at least, which is good. Might give us time to play around with Waking the Trolls. Let's see. That takes all but 1 of our mana, so if we do that, we're not doing anything else. But Vastwood Surge also takes 4 mana. We can only cast 1 spell this turn. If I cast Primal Command, I can grab a 2-mana creature out of our deck with the Search ability, and then we could cast 2 spells. But yeah, it's not great. Waking the Trolls could get back the Field of the Dead, yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. We'll probably just go for the Waking the Trolls here. It is like a pretty slow play, but Primal Command's decently slow as well. This is definitely a lot higher impact over time, because we get a zombie next turn, and then we get a bunch of trolls eventually. 2 turns from now. If we get the zombie next turn, then Vastwood Surge as well is pretty big. Getting really worried about the size of their field. They're going to have a bunch of 6/6s already, to where Sawtusk Demolisher can't block and survive. Uh-oh, SRAM's Expertise, that allows them to double spell. Sword of Body and Mind. Actually pretty disgusting against us, gives protection from green. So we can only block with our zombie tokens against anything that they throw the sword onto. Of course, it does mill 10 cards whenever it hits somebody. Spits out a nice little wolf token as well. Alright, we're going to play as many blockers as we possibly can. Which means probably just the Vastwood Surge here. Do we have 8 mana for it? We do. It's really nice. So we can kick it here, give the field +2/+2. Unfortunately, that triggers before we get the extra zombies. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 to 4. We have 7 more lands than them right now. Okay, we have 6 more lands than them. So Waking the Trolls will get us 6 4/4s. Honestly, I think our best way to break through this game is to just Primal Command to search for our big old flying card, our Drakuzeth. Because breaking through this board state is going to be difficult. But grabbing a giant 7/7 flyer seems pretty good here. And there's a Cultivate as the draw. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 5 to cast that. We'll have 6 mana up. We don't have enough mana to cast Primal Command and Drakuzeth in the same turn. That is a little bit sad. Still just go for it here. You just shuffle our graveyard back in. Our graveyard isn't very good. It's like Atarka's Command and Vastwood Surge are pretty bad draws at this point. Probably still just do that over gaining 7. Maybe we gain 7. We've got 6 mana up after this. Yeah, can't play the Atarka this turn, but I think we still grab the Atarka. Unless, I guess if we cultivate, we can grab the Atarka, or Atarka. Friggin' Atarka's Command's getting me all mixed up. We can grab Drakuzeth and cast it in the same turn, so they can't, like, play around it particularly well. But, I mean, they're a white deck. If they have anything that's going to kill it, it's going to kill it regardless. Yeah, I suppose just in case we draw another spell that we want to cast the same turn, we should probably just drop the Primal Command right now. I have enough just random blockers. I might send an Ulvenwald Hydra here. What's their best block against a 15/15? They can like triple block it and give indestructibility. I only kill like 2 of their cards if they do that, but then I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7... 7 plus 6. What is 7 plus 6? My brain has died. 13. I have 13 creatures against 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That might lead into lethal next turn if they have to do like a double block here. Or even just killing 1 creature off a chump block seems fine. Well, there's also that, but we got that out of the way so Drakuzeth can live, or at least more likely live. Now there's an Ulvenwald Hydra in our grave, so definitely like shuffling that back in. Ulvenwald Hydra and Waking the Trolls are both great cards to redraw at this point, but all of the cards that like pull lands out of our deck are going to be really bad to draw at this point because we do have so few lands left in the deck. I guess we could grab Golos here too. Only 4 mana up. Yeah, I totally forgot we could grab Golos. Maybe we should have just grabbed Golos earlier. Is Golos better than Drakuzeth here? Yeah, because we have the mana to just immediately use Golos' effect. Yeah, let's do it. Next turn we can drop Golos and spin Golos' wheel. Definitely looking at their Sword of Body and Mind there. Might be going for an attack here. Anything that picks up a sword can only be blocked by zombies. And we're going to have to block because of the fact that it mills us 10 cards. Especially since we'll be using Golos to start drawing a ton. If they're going to send in that Loxodon, we're going to have to make some blocks. Yeah, that's Golos mana there. Let's drop it out. We still have white, blue, black, red, green, and 2 up. So we can use the effect. Castle Embereth might actually be a big deal here. Let's see what we got in our top 3. Spring to Mind, Demon Bolt. Can Demon Bolt Mikaeus so they only get 1 more counter on everything else? I can't Demon Bolt Selfless Savior because they can respond by using Mikaeus to give it a +1/+1 counter. Yeah, Mikaeus is pretty much the only thing that this Demon Bolt can kill. That might matter. Do I have any basics left? I have 1 forest. Yeah, get that out of here. How much can I attack and survive here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 blockers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. If they block all that damage, they take 8 plus 8, 16. Could just go for it. And I'm at 14. So then if they crack back, I have 3 zombies. I can chump block that, chump block that, chump block that, chump block that, and take 9. Yeah, I can make a bunch of chump blocks and survive a crackback here if somehow all their creatures survive. So if they have multiple removal spells, this might not get to lethal, but it gets close. And if they don't have any removal, then it was just lethal. Yeah, if they end up having to make any chump blocks at all, then even with like a removal spell, they can't find lethal against us. If they can keep every single creature on the board and have like 2 removal spells left, I think we die. But they've only got 1 card in hand, so that seems unlikely. This is lethal for us right now. We have 8, 12 plus 8 more, that's 20. Alright, so they do have to move around, make several chump blocks there. Or just a couple of them. Now that's 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. That puts them to 1 life. Puts them to 1 life, gives them a chance to maybe draw into a really good spell to crack back for lethal. Alright, we'll see. Here's their last turn. They got to find a way to break through our 4 blockers and hit us for 14. And they've got 5 attackers. So we can block all but 1 creature right now, and we're at 14 life, so I'm feeling pretty safe. But we'll see. They're mono white, so we shouldn't expect any trample here. I don't see how they could possibly turn 5 damage into 14, so I'm probably supposed to keep Golos just as a super just in case here. Alright, now we just attack all. If it's not Settle the Wreckage, we win. Actually, a Tarka's Command. Just deal 3 and they can't gain life. Is this Teferi's Protection or something? Okay. Tarka's Command, so we don't even have to worry about a Settle the Wreckage. Don't be any scared about that. No fear. Settle the Wreckage is usually just terrifying. Exile all attacking creatures. But we could pretty easily play around the Settle there as well. Just attack with like 4 zombie tokens, because 1 zombie hitting them kills them. And then even if they settle us, we've got tons to hit them next turn. So 2 and 2 now. Pretty average run for our Gruul Lands deck. See how things go from here. We've got Fauna Shaman on turn 2. That's a snap keep. Not really. Our mana's kind of bad here. But if we hit one more land of any kind, Vastwood Surge will solve that problem right away. And Fauna Shaman does let us discard Voracious Hydra and grab like an Oracle Moldie or something. Something that might be better for what we have going on here. I'm going to keep it. Fauna Shaman is like my best friend. I cannot resist. And there's the red source, so now we're all set. We even have Spring to cast turn 3. Hand is shaping up really well. Multiple ramp spells to ramp into that Waking the Trolls. Go off with that. Looks like we're against green-white here. They start with Llanowar Visionary. We could blow that up with a Thundering Rebuke to keep them from ramping into big stuff. Just keep them off 1 mana here. But I think with Waking the Trolls in hand, I'd rather set that up as quickly as possible where I can spring here. Next turn I have 5 mana, I cast a Vastwood Surge, then I have like 7 mana, and then I drop Waking the Trolls and go crazy. Yeah, with Waking the Trolls in hand, I'm just going to lean into that pretty heavily. And we'll grab some green off Vastwood Surge probably here. We do need at least 1 more. We'll definitely have Waking the Trolls destroy one of their forests, since we can make good use out of the green mana. If none of our lands die. So they have 5 mana now. They have 2 forests, 2 plains, and the green from Llanowar Visionary. Green-white Selesnya deck. The world is definitely their oyster right now. There's a lot they could have. Elspeth, Sun's Nemesis, it is. She creates a bunch of 1/1 soldiers. It's not insanely threatening. I think it's a slow enough threat that we're still pretty safe here. Do draw another forest for the double green for Voracious Hydra and stuff, so could Vastwood Surge just to get lands with different names for Field of the Dead still here. But also if I play a forest, I get to use Fauna Shaman to grab like a Golos, which is pretty good. Yeah, I'll play a forest here. I'll cast Vastwood Surge, holding up a green. We grab 2 lands with different names, and then we have 6 lands with different names total. Oh, I guess we can't. We have to grab a forest no matter what. Alright, but we do have a Plains in hand, so if we play this Plains and then a Field of the Dead, we do have 7 lands with different names. But I do like holding up the green mana here, so I can discard this Voracious Hydra and search for any creature I want. Which could be Golos if we want to just grab our Field of the Dead next turn. If we think Waking the Trolls is going to be too slow for now, we can just play a Golos, grab a Field of the Dead instead, get a couple zombies. Cast Waking the Trolls the turn after. And also if we cast a Golos, we can cast Thundering Rebuke in the same turn. Vivian Reed. Well, she can destroy Waking the Trolls, and she can destroy Golos, so we're probably going to Thundering Rebuke to kill Vivian. Deal 4 to a Planeswalker here. Except that she goes to 6.
Would you like to see what's left of Scala?
That's not good at all, actually. I don't think we're going to have any way to kill her, because Elspeth also just gets to spit out even more tokens. Oh dear. Yeah, this is astronomically bad. Now they have an Elspeth, an Elesh Norn coming up. That gives their whole field +2/+2, and my field -2/2. That's just going to kill me on the spot if that comes out. They have 6 mana already. They just need to draw 1 more land unless I kill their Llanowar Visionary. If I kill their Llanowar Visionary, I don't get to hold my Thundering Rebuke to kill Vivian. If I play Waking the Trolls, I keep them off the mana as well. I guess I could just... Yeah, I guess I don't discard Voracious Hydra here then. Don't go for the Golos, just play the Voracious Hydra to kill Llanowar Visionary. And then hopefully this is like a big enough trampler to try to attack Vivian with that. That seems like the plan for now. So we can play Voracious Hydra, use it to fight something. We're not going to have any creatures in hand, so we don't need to hold up green for Fauna Shaman. Do we want to cast Thundering Rebuke this turn? No, because we don't want to just rebuke Vivian if Vivian's not going to die immediately. So I think we just make Voracious Hydra a 6/6 then. Just dump all the mana into it. Or 6/7. Fight Llanowar Visionary. They do have 1 green mana up. Llanowar Visionary can tap for a green, so if they have a Blossoming Defense, that can stop this. Alright, no Blossoming Defense from them. With no creatures in hand, do I want to attack with Fauna Shaman here? Still think probably not. I could attack Vivian and get 2 of these soldiers off the board, which makes the trample from Voracious Hydra closer to killing Vivian, which is a thing. Or I just do 2 to Vivian, but I think Fauna Shaman's still such a good card, because now if I like top deck Thrashing Brontodon or something, that's pretty useless in this situation. The fact that I turn any creature that I draw into a Golos is pretty big.
The wilds are my shield.
Oh, Hornet Queen. Well, I guess they're still 1 mana away from that as well. That costs just as much as Elesh does. So it's just as big of a problem. Them hitting 7 mana is pretty much the most disastrous thing that could happen to us here, because then they have Elesh and Hornet Queen, both cards that could easily win the game here. Because they just get a giant field of Hornets to protect their Planeswalkers with, or they just make their field bigger and completely kill our field with Elesh. Karuga the Macro Sage. And they get to draw a couple cards off that. Seems pretty good. Now we're at that point where we're going to have to Waking the Trolls to destroy one of their lands. But Vivian gets to kill the Waking the Trolls, because I don't think a Voracious Hydra gets to hit Vivian for enough to keep her from doing that. I guess Resilient Kenra helps. I mean, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 mana. I suppose we don't have enough mana to Thundering Rebuke, Resilient Kenra, and Waking the Trolls this turn. Could discard Resilient Kenra to grab Golos. But getting a bunch of 2/2 zombies off of Field of the Dead isn't good when they have Eleshnorn coming up. That just gives all creatures -2/-2. Do we discard Resilient Kenra to cast it from the grave here, though? If we cast it from the grave, give Voracious Hydra +4/+4. Voracious Hydra's 10 power. 10, they have 8 toughness. We hit Vivian for at least 2. It's kind of a thing, but if we do that, again, we're spending all our mana to where we can't cast Waking the Trolls, which means they can easily have the mana to cast one of these next turn, especially because they just drew 3 cards. Yeah, we have 3 mana to play around with here. 9. I think we have to just go for the Waking the Trolls. We're going to let them kill it with Vivian. But we get to kill one of their planes here, so now they specifically need another white source if they want to get Eleshnorn out. So that makes it even harder. Do I want a Resilient Kenra pre-combat, or do I want a Thundering Rebuke post-combat? I think you just block with Karuga and 2 1/1s if we just attack without Kenra coming out here. Yeah. Let's just plop the Kenra out. That's 8 power now. That can kill everything they block with. So we either hit Vivian a bit or we like wipe their board here, which both is good because the ultimate here is really good when they have a bunch of creatures out. So we want to keep them off that. Alright, so we're just going to wipe the board here. Pretty nice. But now Vivian definitely has the loyalty to be able to kill our Waking the Trolls, which is what I would expect from her this turn. Well, maybe they plus, maybe they're trying to hit that ultimate. No, they're going to kill Waking the Trolls. Fair enough, but that leaves her to low enough. We can actually Thundering Rebuke her this turn. Which means if we do draw another creature, we do actually get to cast and keep a Golos on the board, and we have 5 colors of mana to play around with Golos. If they don't have the just like regular creature-based removal spell to kill them. We do draw a creature, it's a Thragtusk, which is good here, but I don't think as good as Golos, so we're going to grab Golos. Definitely hoping for them to not have more removal. Grab that Field of the Dead, although they're 1 mana away from Elesh Norn, so likely these zombies are going to die.
Not bad for a mouse.
Okay. So Vivian's gone, so we know we get to keep Golos, but now we're worried about that Elesh Norn. If Elesh Norn comes out, we're down to just a Golos on the board. But we still get to use Golos' effect and hope for the best off of that. It's really hard to kill an Elesh Norn. It's got 7 toughness here. We got to get pretty lucky off the Golos spins. And our Field of the Dead does nothing as long as they have an Elesh out because our zombies get -2/-2. Yep, that is what I would expect here. Definitely a lot better than the Hornet Queen on this board state. They also get to smack us for a bunch with Tender Shoot Dryad plus Elesh, being a very good combo to get a bunch of really big tokens every single upkeep. They have 4 cards in their grave. It takes 4 cards to escape Elspeth. So if we kill Elspeth, they can just bring it back. Looks like they're just going to kill Elspeth so that they can bring it back and get more 1/1s. Looking pretty bad here. I think we're pretty much all in on spinning the wheel on Golos and hoping for the best. Escape to the Wilds. How much does Golos cost to do? That costs 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We can spend that 7 and have 4 mana up. We can't cast both of these unless I draw 2 lands off of the Escape to the Wilds, which seems pretty risky. I think I'd rather just use Golos. Alright. What do we got? Oh, maybe we do get to cast both. Oh, no. Oracle is a 0/0 because of Elesh. If we didn't cast Oracle, it just gets exiled anyway, so I guess it's better to be in the graveyard than exiled, so not as embarrassing as it looked. But because Oracle dies, we don't get to play any extra lands this turn, which means we're stuck on 4 mana, which means we actually don't cast Escape. We're dead to these tokens for sure. Man, definitely just got handed to us by these this green-white token deck here. The Planeswalkers were definitely a really big hindrance. If they didn't just have the ability to destroy enchantments the whole time, Waking the Trolls could have done a lot more work, helping keep them off Elesh as long as possible. But definitely just got destroyed here. Very nice Selesnya tokens deck. And that is going to end the Arena Cube draft here. That makes it 2 and 3. A little below average, but not the end of the world there. 2 and 3, we do get 1,000 gold back. Get some random card rewards. With a Baral's Expertise as the rare, one of the Kaladesh remastered rares. Really cool set. I really liked Kaladesh when it was in Standard, and I guess that's kind of an unpopular opinion, but I did. And I would be very interested in drafting more Kaladesh, but they've only put it on to draft the one time. So, anyways, that is going to end today's Arena Cube draft. If you're watching on YouTube, thank you very much for watching, and if you would like to see more of the content, make sure to do all the stuff that lets the YouTube algorithm know that you're interested in the content and want to see more. Like, comment, subscribe, all those goodies. And I will see you again soon for some more Magic Arena.